6:30 and time to start the MAAP community call. I'm Deborah Hamilton, Hamilton Law and Mediation, and the Why Do Pets Matter podcast, as well as the leader. And so grateful to all the attendees who come to the MAAP community call each week to learn a little bit more about what they need to do to make a plan for their pets. Hi, Sally. Hi, Rose. Good to see you both.
Hi, Deborah. Great to see you.
I have to tell you today, I just got a call from an AKC delegate. I almost was late for this call because they're all talking about making plans for their paintings and making plans for their jewelry and their, semen, because the AKC is trying to decide how to keep lines of dogs available, but yet they are not making plans for the care of their pets if they get sick. Why isn't everyone here on this call with us, Sally? I have no idea. They only talk about death, and we know that's only one of the Ds that could make it impossible for you to take care of your pets. And so tonight, I wanted to add a ninth D. We are just really racking up those Ds. So one of our community participants added deployment, which is hugely important with everyone going away. Do you foster your dog? Do you give it away? Will your parents take it? Will your neighbor take it? Is your spouse able to take it with the kids and everything else? What can you do to lighten that load a little? There's huge amounts of information that we give at our workshops about what to do with any of the Ds. So to run through them, the 8 we have, and now we're going to have a drum roll for the 9th one. Death, divorce, disease, disaster, delay, dementia, disability, and deployment. Those are our 8. And I'm adding tonight domestic violence. Now, some of you may know that I was an assistant district attorney before I started Hamilton Law Mediation. And in that role, we saw a lot of people who never left difficult situations because they had pets. Some of them had really big pets like horses. And so to leave them left them in serious jeopardy, possible serious jeopardy. So what the MAAP plan allows you to do is sit down, write a plan, ask people to help you, and make that plan move forward. A number of domestic violence shelters now take small pets, cats and dogs. They either keep them on site, they have a place for them on site, or they work with rescues and shelters to have the pets go there where you can go visit them, but they're safe and they're ready for you to take when you're able to move on. Some people don't want to do that. And so if you want to make a plan for your pet, you're going to have to find those people nearby who will help you put the pet in a situation and then leave and come back. And all of that has to be what, Sally? It all has to be in writing.
It has to be in writing and published. And just this week, I was going to go away with my husband for 3 days. And I called the number one person on my MAAP plan. And he said, "Oh, I just have so much on my plate. I couldn't possibly take the dog for 3 days." I called the number 2 person and she said, "Oh, I would love the dog, but I have a cat." And I'm like, wow. So you absolutely have to have at least 3 people. You have to publish. You have to keep them in touch with one another because you never know what's happening in their lives when you need someone to care for your pet.
Oh, that you hit the nail on the head. You have to communicate. You have to be transparent. And as a caregiver, a possible caregiver, you have to be transparent with the person with the dog and say no if you can't. Don't try to take the dog if it's not going to work out. That really is important. You have to have the courage of your convictions that it's not a good time. And I'm sure that you and Gordon probably wanted to go away. However, you didn't. And as it turned out here in New York, it rained and rained and rained. It was very cold. So whenever you want to go again, make sure you call number 4 on the list, which would be me, before July 4th, so that I can take Athena back. And even though she doesn't necessarily like being here, you and Gordon can take that much needed vacation before we unload all our dogs on you to care for as we leave New York and go to North Carolina. Hey, Kieran, how are you? It's good to see you.
Hi, Debbie. How are things?
Very good. We introduced a new D. Can you believe it? We went from 7 to 8 with deployment from Connie. And then today I realized that domestic violence is another area that you need to make a plan for your pet, because you might have to stay in a situation that is not good for you, or leave your pet behind in a situation that's not good for you or probably for it. And sometimes the animals are used against people. So really, domestic violence is number 9. We will probably have 10 before the end of the year, but right now number 9 is our new D. So again, we have death, which everyone seems to plan for, but not necessarily as clearly as they should. Disability, delay, disaster, dementia, deployment, divorce, disaster, I think I didn't say, and then of course, domestic violence. You can find all this on Hamilton Law Mediation and make sure that you understand why it is you need to make a plan for your pet. So before I check in tonight, and I'm going to say it again at the end of the night, I will be AWOL June 16th. Wednesday night. I know I haven't been AWOL for over a year. However, I will be in Frederick, Maryland, running the veteran sweepstakes classes at the Irish Setter Club of America National. And so I won't be able to be here because I'll be in the ring. I'll be stewarding. I will not be running around the ring with a dog, but I will be stewarding. And so I just will not be able to make it. And I apologize to everyone. However, I'm sure that we can run a replay of something or send out something to everyone. Maybe I'll send out a piece of the MAP plan so everybody can get it in their mailboxes, because I want to make sure that everyone understands the importance of making that plan. Before you got on, Kieran, I was telling Sally and Rose that a colleague of mine who's an AKC delegate was telling me how the delegates were all talking about how to disperse your dog art, your dog jewelry, and your frozen sperm, but they weren't talking about how to disperse your live dogs that are living with you. And she said, I don't know why they don't understand what you do. And I said, it's really difficult. It seems as if people just believe someone will come to the aid of their countrymen. And most of the time we do, but is that the person you want to take your dog? Is it in the situation you want? Are you able to help them pay for some of the costs of the dog? Does your vet know these people? Does your attorney know these people? No, nothing. And so if you really want to have that hand in assuring that your pets are well cared for, if something should happen to you long-term, short-term, it's key. And again, going hand in hand with One-Eyed Leo. You know, One-Eyed Leo had a really rough time of it, right, Kieran? And then he had a better time of it. It's because the people who adopted him the second time read Kieran's new book, One-Eyed Leo, and recognized the responsibilities of pet ownership, as opposed to the people who had One-Eyed Leo before. So give us a little background on One-Eyed Leo and why you decided to write this book, because it really is important to the entire MAP community to understand what they are getting into, maybe even make a map before you get a dog so that you understand the responsibilities you have.
Well, I hope the internet is okay. Can you hear me clearly?
We can, like a bell.
Okay, good. So, and thank you again for dropping me into the deep end. You seem to be very good at this.
Well, you know, you're going to be doing book tours once that gets out all over the world, since we're now hearing that One-Eyed Leo will be translated into a number of languages because it was so well received. So, yep, go into the deep end. Start treading water, Kieran.
Treading water, right. Right. Well, Leo is actually a real live dog.
I know he is.
He's still alive, and it's the, you know, quite often they say when an idea is ready to come, it just arrives. So I met Leo on a farm, and for some reason he decided to stay with me on the farm, and he didn't actually have a kennel, so I built a kennel out of 2 cardboard boxes from the local supermarket. So one flat on the ground, the other inverted. And then I just put poles in between, poles around the corners of the box. So then you actually had a structure. And then I just cut a hole around in the front and just got some padding. So it was a sort of a DIY kennel in about 20 minutes. And for some reason, he actually this was his castle all of a sudden. But I suppose, you know, quite often in life, we click with people or we click with animals. And it's hard to explain it, but Leo sort of gave me the idea that he was going to be the central character. And the strange thing with the book is I got this flow of ideas, and the book was written over a weekend, but then it took 6 months and 50 people to put, including yourself, Debbie, of course, including yourself, to sort of say, well, yeah, that's the general shape, but now we have to sculpt the detail. And the strange thing about it is it seems to carry, it's one of these strange things where it sort of has a life of its own. And I never felt so relieved when I could say, yeah, that's it. It's finished now. End of story. There's going to be no revisions. And what's happened, I suppose over the last few days, like the plan I have for it and the group I work with, like the immediate reaction was, as soon as we get this onto Amazon, we'll all make money and we'll all be happy. And I'm quite happy to say Amazon won't be seeing this. End of story. That it's going to stay. There's sort of 3 distribution points that I'm looking at, which is the microchipping companies, for the simple reason that even people who have a dog, or if they get a dog from a shelter, they have to re-register the data. And I've talked to a few microchipping companies. One is starting with it in the next few days. So anytime somebody wants to re-register the chip, they'll get the information that this book is available. The second group will be the veterinary practices. And again, I'm delighted to say the largest group of veterinary practices in Ireland have come out to back it. And the third group will, of course, be the rescue shelters. So the way I'd see it going forward is that anytime it's going to be purchased, I'd hope it will be purchased through the websites of the veterinary practices, the rescue shelters, the microchipping companies, and I'll say anybody else in that space. So what I'm looking at is that the money stays within the people who care for dogs, not that a mass marketing company gets a big chunk. So that's where it is. I was talking to, I would say, one of your country, your fellow country women. I'm not sure if that's the right the right phrasing, but there was an amazing dog trainer from the States I met in Ireland many years ago, and she used to represent the insurance industry at Congress. So I sent her a copy of your write-up, Debbie, and she was straight on the phone, and she's given me this long list of people and organizations I have to chase up. Now, I'll have to say it goes over 4 or 5 emails, and I got to it in the next few days. So it's I'm sort of happy to say it's surprisingly taken a life of its own. So I think the question to put to you back to Debbie is, you've had the comfort of being involved in it, but you've had a lot more distance from it than I have. Like I'm still chasing the detail here and the question there. So,
well, I love the fact that you're keeping it sort of in-house with people who are acquiring pets. And whether it's a shelter or a breeder, we shifted a little of the language to cover both, because everyone should be a responsible pet owner, and that's what One-Eyed Leo helps you be. And it was funny, this morning I talked to a number of people for Trupanion, another group that you should probably share it with, the insurance companies for pet insurance, Trupanion, VIP, because...
Sorry, Debbie, could you spell that out for me, please?
Trupanion, Trupanion, and VIP, which is, I think, very important pet. I can send that to you. But if you look at the insurance companies that are insuring pets, there are a number of things that I didn't know. So I'll share this with you, Kieran, and with everyone who listens. When you have a MAAP plan and you get your dog, you should do a little homework first. I've always talked about reading the contract for the dog, be it a rescue shelter, a rescue, a breeder. Read the contract first. Do not go there with the dog in your lap and read the contract. That is the worst time to read a contract, because it could say you have to stand on your head every Thursday night in the driveway, and you wouldn't A, see it, or B, understand that you really had to do that. So I always tell people, please get the contract before, please read it. If you have questions, ask. And if the breeder ever says to you, or the shelter ever says to you, we never enforce that paragraph, say, great, can we cross it out? Because they're only going to enforce it if, in fact, it's there. And if you don't cross it out, if they tell you they're not going to enforce it, cross it out and initial it, both of you, so that you know that that paragraph isn't going to be enforced if it really is upsetting to you, i.e. coming on your property and taking the dog if a neighbor calls and says the dog is barking incessantly without more. That really drives me nuts. But what I found out today is that there is a lot of information about pet insurance and what insurance costs for a bulldog, what insurance costs for an Irish setter, what insurance costs are for a dachshund, due to the actuary table of, do they get sick? Don't they get sick? Do they get injured? Don't they get injured? And so the amount of money you pay depends on the breed of dog you choose, given their hereditary statistics. And of course, that's what insurance companies do. They keep statistics. And so when you're buying a dog, you might want to check with your insurance company first and say, listen, if I buy a Labradoodle, is it going to cost me more or less than if I buy a Labrador or a Poodle? I don't know the answer to that, but you should call the insurance company. The other piece of information that was really interesting to me is that where you live also dictates how much you pay. So when I was speaking to them, I said, well, I'm leaving New York and I'm moving to North Carolina. And they go, well, your premium's going down. I said, really? And they said, yes, because the cost of veterinary medicine in North Carolina is less than the cost of veterinary medicine in New York. So your premium will go down. So make sure you understand that if you buy a dog in New York, the insurance might be more expensive than if you buy a dog in Green Bay, Wisconsin, or Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin, or, Omaha, Nebraska. So these are questions you need to ask the insurance companies. The other piece that I found out is that it's on a case-by-case basis, whether or not, if I give Roxy to Sally, does her insurance go with her? Or does Sally have to start from scratch? Now, that's not a problem if I'm a breeder and handing Sally an 8-week-old puppy. But if I'm handing Sally an 11-year-old Irish setter and her insurance doesn't come with her, that's huge, because I've already paid into the pot that amount of money that is supposed to be there to protect Roxy if she becomes ill. If you don't know that up front when you're buying insurance, it may be a driving force in why you pick insurance A over insurance B, because God forbid something happened to me, I have my MAP plan, right? And do I want an insurance policy that allows me to transfer my dog and that insurance policy to the 3 caregivers if need be? Because you want them to take care of your dog, right? So these are important questions to ask. So to answer your question, you have set up in your book probably the best pre-educational piece for pet owners or wannabe pet owners to take before they take the plunge. I always say, and I've probably said it here on this MAAP call a billion times, the most inexpensive part of my horse when I acquired him was buying him. Now, that was a big chunk of change, but I can tell you the yearly maintenance of my horse was so much more than the initial purchase price. Had I known, I might not have bought my horse. Now, I love my horse and I don't begrudge him a dime I ever spent on him. However, I wish I'd known. And so what One-Eyed Leo does, it is makes you do that common sense checklist. How much time is it going to take? How much money is it going to take? Who do I have to know? What do I have to do? Who do I have to have in my sphere? Do I want a breeder who is going to help me? Do I want to just have a breeder who, gives me the dog and doesn't have any strings attached? There's nothing wrong with choosing who you want to get your dog from, but recognize if you want someone who's going to know the breed, who's going to mentor you, you might want to make sure you sign a contract that says, I'm going to be there for you for the life of the dog. That's what my contracts say. The rescue contracts, we talked about this last week when I talked with Tom Van Wagner, who I love and who's going to be on one of the Why Do Pets Matter podcasts. He said the rescues really do want the dogs back if you can't keep it. But if you have a neighbor who knows the dog, loves the dog, and will be willing to let us know who they are and sign the contract so that if something happens to them, the dog comes back, we are good to go. We have an empty crate then for a dog that doesn't have a good second family. And so for me, this MAAP plan and this community just reiterates every week. And thank you to Colin, who brought this book to the forefront so that we can talk about all these things you need to do pre-pet acquisition. Nobody does anything pre-pet acquisition except see if the dog sheds or not, or see if how big the dog gets. And Colin, you and I both know, and Sally, you know this perfectly, that has like such a minuscule effect on what it is that it takes to have a pet. So Sally, I'm going to ask you, what do you think are the 3 most important things you need to know before you buy a pet?
Well, I would say medical. What issues are they? Is there bone cancer in the background, or what do I have to know and what do I have to look for? That would be high on my list. I'd be curious about also diet. Like what does this dog eat that the dog will like and will continue to eat? And how much do I exercise the dog? So for me, those 3 things would be very important.
Yeah, because you want to be able to set aside the time to exercise it, or if you're sedentary, know that the dog needs very little exercise. If you have a dog that needs a special diet that's expensive, you need to know that. If they can eat any Purina dog chow that's on the market, super. And finally, your first point, which is, is this dog healthy? And if you adopt a dog, that question can't always be answered at all. However, if you want to assure that, then buying from a breeder would be a perfect answer. I hope that insurance companies will do for shelters what they're now doing with breeders, which is if the shelter has puppies or young dogs and they check out okay, Trupanion is one of the companies that allows breeders to pass on the ability to get this insurance at a reduced rate if you buy my puppy, because the mother and father are insured by Trupanion. So we know that what the mother and father's issues are. So we're going to make sure that the puppy owners get a few months free or a lesser cost of the first year or whatever, because we know what's behind that dog because we insure their parents and their grandparents. So it's a breeder thing that offers new pet owners, new puppy owners, a reduced rate. If you're from a shelter, I would not be surprised if in the future shelters will work with insurance companies to have a reduced rate for insurance, simply if it's a young dog. If you have any history on it, great. If you don't have any history on it, well, listen, we're going to work with the shelter because we want to help these dogs have the best fresh start they're going to get. So no, we don't know what their history is, but if you just called me up and said I want insurance and I'm not from, as Tom Van Wagner is from Hillsdale, I'm not from Hillsdale, but if Hillsdale really wants to help Trupanion or some other kinds of insurance get a foothold in helping people pay for their pets, I think that'll work out really well. So I'm here, I'm back. I just went into the ethers and then I stopped. But what's really important is that most people will know what they need to do for their pet for insurance. So like your book, these are the questions you ask before you get the pet. And, we can always do an educational piece on, and these are the extra things you need to do. One of the D's is, make sure you have insurance. I have to figure out how to put that into a D. Does that help, Karen? Does that answer your question?
Does indeed. To put insurance into a D, right. Do you remember that line we had?
Yep.
Go on.
Go ahead. I don't remember it. You go.
You can finish it.
I can finish it. Do you remember that line we had? No, I don't.
With a D in it.
Oh, with a D in it.
Yes. If there is a doubt.
Throw it to heck out? No.
if there is a doubt, there is no doubt.
Oh, I love that. If there's a doubt, there's no doubt. That's sort of like there is, or there isn't, there's no try. That's from Yoda, from Star Wars, or Star Wars. There is no try. There's do or don't do. There's no try. And I think for us, we'll think of a D to put in there to make sure that we understand that, and probably under disease, insurance would really be something that we would need to think about for the dogs. So dog diseases, we need insurance. So before I wrap up, I want to catch up with Sally and see if she needs anybody to watch her dog, because I know somebody who's available next week, and after the 20th and before the 4th, so that she and Gordon can take a vacation. And then I want to check in. Kieran, you're still in Tenerife, so I'm going to check in with you. But first, Sally, so are you going to take that trip or you're not?
I just canceled it. So there you go. We've got a heat wave coming in here on the East Coast. And as you know, Athena's an older dog, and I had a great person come step right up to the table and said, I'd be more than happy to come live at your house. And I thought, heat wave, older dog, that means walking at 5:30 in the morning, and, reducing the food and extra water. So, and a new haircut. So I decided I'll pass. I can always go later. But thank you.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm here for you. So if it gets cold, and you think about it before the 10th and after the 20th, I'm here. Just
Thank you.
you can just drive by and slow down on the Sawmill, and she knows her way here. Although she hates it, she knows her way here.
She knows her way. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and Kieran, what are you up to now in Tenerife? Are you ever going back to Ireland, or you're just going to stay there forever?
Oh, we all follow God's plans, so no questions asked.
I do the same thing. I'm here in this house with an extra year due to COVID, and now we're moving on, and we're doing a VRBO down in North Carolina till our house is done. I will share with everyone in the community that I saw pictures of my house yesterday. A colleague of mine was in Morehead City and drove by, and it looks exactly the same as it looked in April. So I'm a little afeared. I need to say I'm a little afeared that I will not be in September 1st, but I am hopeful. So if any of you are in Morehead City, please don't hesitate to reach out, text me, let me know. You can stop by and sit on the back deck, because that's the only thing that really is stable in that house right now.
Oh, that's awful.
So I love that you guys were here. I hope that our discussion about insurance and about One-Eyed Leo was again helpful, because I don't think we can get enough information out there in the MAAP plan community about understanding what you need to know before you get a pet. And once you get a pet, read One-Eyed Leo anyway, because then you'll know, oh shit, I really should have known about this, but I know it now, and I know what my responsibility is. And of course, make sure you check out insurance, get insurance as soon as you can. And we now have 9 Ds, because we're going to add domestic violence. Not a happy subject to talk about, I understand, but the biggest and most important barrier to leaving is leaving the pets behind. And I know that from my experience as a DA here in Westchester County. So if you're making a MAAP plan, make sure that you may have a perfect marriage now, everything might be hunky-dory, and just make sure that you cover every base, because you want to be able to keep yourself safe and your pets safe. So until next weekend, Sally, tell us the last thing you want everybody to hear tonight.
It's a good night. That's all. It's a good night. The dog is happy. She's had her dinner, and she's gone to bed early. So life is good here.
Perfect. How about you, Kieran? What now that you've launched the book and everything's going swimmingly well, although maybe going in different directions, how are you feeling? Close us out tonight.
Relaxed.
Well, that's good, because I am so in overdrive between work and the national and moving that I'm glad that both my people are sending relaxed energy to me, because I absolutely need it. So until next Wednesday, and remember, June 16th, I will not be here. I will be at the National. But until next Wednesday, when I will be here, you take good care of your dogs, make a plan for your dogs, make sure people know about the plan, and make sure that you really take the time to understand what your pet needs going forward. I'm Deborah Hamilton, Hamilton Lawn Mediation, the Why Do Pets Matter podcast. Don't miss the podcast. And of course, this wonderful MAAP community that I look forward to seeing every single week. Take care.